All right, are we ready?
Ready.
Awesome. Okay, Brianna, we're at the end of the program, and congratulations for successfully complete the Confident program. I would really love to hear about your biggest takeaway.
So I think that my biggest takeaway from this program was learning a lot of in-depth concepts about myself and what I actually want and enjoy doing. I think we, as kind of human beings, start to put ourselves in boxes and we do what we think we're supposed to do, or at least I did. And I think through this program, I really got a chance to see myself kind of looking in at myself and figuring out who I am and seeing myself through a whole different lens. And that was a massive takeaway for me where I was able to kind of go, oh, I actually see myself enjoying this. Like I'm actually having fun rather than just doing something that I feel obligated to do, which is, I think, what I've done in most of my positions up until this point. So my biggest takeaway was, kind of this journey of learning more about me and being comfortable with being that person on the outside and letting other people see that. So that I think that's a huge gift that you've given me.
Wow, I really appreciate you sharing that. And that really warms my heart to hear that you got that from the program. And knowing
Yeah,
yourself, knowing who you are, is basically fundamental in understanding what you want to do, right? You do things as you rather than
right.
being someone else and living someone else's life. So congratulations. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
The second question I would like to ask is, how did this whole process help you get there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you laid it out in a really, in fact, had to stop me several times from jumping too far ahead, right? You really kept me going one step at a time and seeing all the benefits that each of those steps really brought to the process. So like there is something to be said about slow and steady to some degree, where you get this time to kind of mull over all the information you just learned from the last session and how that impacts your next step. And that was a huge piece of what I kind of took away from this was right, like planning out and allowing myself the time to learn from each thing, but also taking that into the future for me, right? Like planning out what I'm going to do next and my goals, and then taking a moment to kind of step back and look at that before moving on to the next piece, right? Not rushing through everything and kind of missing a lot of the important pieces along the way. So I thought that was a big help for me because I'm a rusher. I'm a runner. But you really kind of spell it out for me, and I got to see. Right, we just talked about seeing who I am, but it was kind of through that slow process that I got to see that. Right, that time to reflect, and rather than just coming to a session, the very next day, right, not having time to sit with that information. I got time to kind of talk with my peers about it and get more insight into those things that I discovered by hearing about it from their perspective, even. So it's life changing. Um, that this program is life changing.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to hear you say that because the time in between sessions are crucial because you are making changes. So to your brain, it's kind of threatening at the beginning. It's just like, wait a minute, we're so used to do this old way. What are you doing now, right? So this
Mm,
time between is kind of you and your mind to kind of get along with each other and to
yeah.
convince your brain that this is a safe move and this is a better move. And it takes time to really get used to and be comfortable with it. So that's a great point that you mentioned that. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
One more question is, which one is your favorite session?
I think my favorite session was, and there's a kind of a story a little bit to that, but my favorite session was the one where we meditated,
Okay.
which was actually rather early on. But I think the reason for that was because that meditation it was very enlightening. And when I sat through it with you that day, I saw one thing, but I realized later on that I was actually in the moment, I actually didn't see everything that I told you or thought that I'd seen. I kind of, right from this concept of feeling like I need to meet expectations, I had yet again filled it with other things. And then later on, as we had gone another session or two, I'd realized that I actually, in that moment, had only seen myself in this room, and I knew what I was doing in the room, but I didn't know what I was doing it for. And we later on kind of discovered that actually the piece that I'm doing it for was the biggest factor, right? That was the thing that, so I just thought that was a really enlightening, if you can be really open to, really being free and allowing the process, like you really get a lot from that particular session because it tells you a lot about yourself. And if you're paying attention and you don't let other things fill your brain, you can reflect back on that session and that meditation, and it kind of almost recenters you, going, oh no, this is what I actually wanted, and what I actually see for myself. But it is funny how, like, in that moment I had seen it a different way, and a few months, or not a few months, but a few sessions later I'd realized, oh, it's the same thing, but it just applied differently. And I was, so influenced with the other things in my world and in my life that I had made a decision instantaneously of what that thing must have been, but I actually didn't really know. So, staying open. And I thought that particular session really challenged me, right? To stay open and willing, and, willing to discover, but also willing to, kind of be vulnerable. And I think that that's a piece of this process. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and see yourself for who you really are and what you really want, and allow that to be okay.
That's definitely a valid point. It's a great point about being open and vulnerable and honest. That's kind of like the requirement for successfully completing this process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I do remember that visualization, you kind of seeing yourself in some sort of room. You were talking about selecting colors or what?
Yeah, I think in the initial one, I saw myself in a room and I knew I was holding kind of like material.
Right.
But in the moment, I had thought, oh, I wanted to be like an event planner. And I had
Oh,
pushed that
right.
thought into it, but I actually didn't know what I was decorating or designing. I didn't know that really I wanted to be an interior designer or interior decorator, right? Like I was so focused on just naming it that I kind of filled the gap.
Mhm.
And so, right, like that's part of the vulnerability of just you don't fill it in for yourself. You have to allow yourself to see it for what it is.
Mhm.
So that I thought that visual from that session has always stuck with me. So I think that's why it's the most impactful for me, because it's kind of that centering element that I keep going back to reflect on where I'm going and what I really want.
I love it. I mean, honestly, that is your kind of first attempt to reconnect to that true desire within you. It comes to a really abstract form. I never ask my client to dissect or analyze what it exactly is, but it's usually symbolic in some sort of new direction that they have desire for.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was
you
very cool. I very much enjoyed it.
I appreciate that you're sharing that. That's wonderful. And later on, it will tie things together. You'll be like, oh, that's why I was seeing that. So
Right.
you had
Exactly.
that experience after completing the program. So
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
very pleased to hear that. Awesome. All right, last question. Now that you have completed this program, what do you think about if other people take this program? How can this confident program help other people like you?
I think it's very grounding, this program, right? It for me, right, like I kind of took it on a little bit more therapeutically, right? Where I've just really, really rediscovered myself as a human. And maybe not everybody will get that particular piece out of it. But at the very core of it, right, it grounds you in who you are and what your real desires are. And in a logical, pathway to discovering that, where you're not overlooking pieces of yourself, or overlooking skills that you have. You're also being very honest with yourself about what you need to, grow in, and how you can manage that. And I think everybody who takes this is going to have that experience of really taking a moment and taking a step back and feeling like, oh, I've always had the capability of doing this. I've
Yeah.
just never allowed myself that, to take that step, or to maybe I didn't see it, or I didn't really know that this was the real path that I wanted. But now that I can see it in front of myself, I can take that path. I can start walking. So I think that, yeah, I think it's a good way to more or less recenter yourself and kind of, even if you didn't change, maybe you find that you're actually good at the thing you're already doing, and you find a new way to fall in love with that, right? I think it's just the program isn't designed to necessarily change you, it's to discover who you already are. And I think anyone who takes this is going to have that same experience in one way or another.
I love that you're saying that the essence of the program is about pointing out or shine the lights at you to show you what you already know, but you're not
Right.
willing to yet admit or go towards it. So
Right. Yeah.
that's why it's called the confident program. It gives you that confidence piece. Once you have clarity, you have evidence to back up that what you think you should be doing, then the confidence is already there.
It's just true, because how confident was I when we started?
You
I'm
never,
much
you,
more confident now.
right, you did not think that it was a possibility for what
No,
you're choosing now. You
no,
see
I
it
didn't.
as just, it's a hobby. This is just like something I do on the side. But then the more you see it, like, why can I do this more and turn it into a profession?
Yeah.
The more it
When you
makes sense.
you see your passions, and it's really hard to ignore them, I think, through this
Exactly.
process.
Exactly. And you kind of having all the steps just kind of fall into place for you. In order for
Mm,
me to get here, what do I need to do? And you just kind of figure it out on your own.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, a
Because
lot of guidance happens there too. Let's not discount all the things you do.
because the care that you have, once you care something so much, your
Right.
brain constantly working for figuring out, how to get closer and closer to that goal you have in mind. If you
Yeah.
don't care about it, you wouldn't even think about it, and no idea is gonna surface.
Right. This is
So
true.
that's why it's very important to do the things that you love and care about, because,
Mm,
creativity also naturally follows with it.
yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I definitely will make sure to share this out so other people can hear about your stories. And I again congrats you to arrive at a place where you can claim that I am doing what I think I should be doing as me.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And I've really very much enjoyed this journey with you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing.